All right, going parabolic. Looks like we got Frank Chapparro today on the show. He's trying to check in right now, but let's take a little bit of music and we'll let him know.
Sorry, I need an extension cord. I only have one outlet down here, so I have to unplug everything to get the microphone
Got it.
connected. Hopefully that'll be here today. It's been.
Sounds just fine. Sounds fine. Everything looks great.
Oh yeah. I plugged it in, but I had to unplug my other shit to plug this in.
Nah, no worries, no worries. So first of all, thanks for joining me. Is it Tuesday?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't even know. COVID.
Last time I checked, it was, yeah.
Now, are you in your new place in New York? I follow you intensely. So,
yeah.
And I'm hard hitting here on going parabolic. So I've been watching you assemble IKEA furniture.
Yeah. So the bed I got put together, this chair I'm sitting in wasn't IKEA, but a similar type of self-assembly process required. So yeah, it's been busy. I have my tools somewhere around here.
I love it. And everyone's safe. I mean, all joking aside, you guys have been safe. You haven't been affected by COVID,
no,
other than kind of work, and you were kind of moving around a little bit too. It got a little weird. Before we get into it, got a little weird. You seem to have fled New York at one point. I mean, what was going on, Frank?
To an extent. Yeah, what was going on? I kind of was just it's going to maybe get a little funky here. And I'd always had this desire, this pipe dream. You have things that you want to do, but you're never going to do it.
Yeah.
One of those was to move out of the city over the summer and to sort of be somewhere new. I've lived here for almost 8 years now. I've never really lived anywhere else outside the tri-state area. And folks my age typically have that story, right, where they live in a van in Arizona for a year. I kind of wanted my Arizona van experience. So around March, when things started getting a little seedy and COVID was first entering the public sphere here in the US, I thought, this is my chance to kind of get away, live somewhere else. So I started in the Poconos. My buddy has a lake house out there, but just got a little creepy, It was 2 weeks of a basic solitude up in the mountains in basically the middle of the winter, or the tail end of the winter. And so then I kind of got tired of that and sought refuge at my sister's in Rhode Island. So that's what brought me there. And then ultimately back home to New Jersey, and then to Florida right before it spiked in Florida. And then I came back to the city about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was in Peru, and we were joking about we should be contact tracing you, because you were doing all of these things, and then we would get big headlines you don't want people coming out of New York, and then cops are going door to door. And yeah. I actually thought police were looking for you in particular. That may be an overstatement.
No, it's actually not really an overstatement. So when I got to Rhode Island, there were very few cases there, maybe about 200 in the entire state. And New York at the time was the big epicenter. It was still on the upswing. And the governor of Rhode Island, Gina something, I can't remember her last name, a Democrat, came out and said anyone coming in from New York has to self-quarantine for 14 days, which is fine, basically what I did. But they actually had National Guard going to door in the sort of shoreline communities. And so they did stop at my sister's, basically trying to figure out if anyone from out of state was there, and effectively looking for us rapscallion New Yorkers.
I love it. So yeah. My motivation for speaking with you today was there's a few people, probably more than a few, that have really quick repartee and are right on memes and don't block trolls. And I appreciate all of that deeply. Like I learn from people who have opposing views and who hold me accountable for mistakes or what have you. You seem to strike me as the same person. And if I start to peel back the onion, it's probably why you're successful. So maybe comment on that, and then tell the Going Parabolic viewers and my whole staff, big staff here at Going Parabolic, about who you are. Please be quiet back there.
We're really, 100%. And I appreciate the audience and the team. They're putting in a lot of hard work, a lot of hours. And
Teamwork,
it's something that
Frank.
we can definitely relate to here at the block, the virtual office that I have here. It's incredibly important as a journalist to have a thick skin and to not let things bother you, and to understand that at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to make a living for the most part. And so whenever there is sort of vitriol towards some of my reporting, and this happens all the time, I kind of try to take a moment to accept that, these people are fighting back, pushing back for their livelihoods, and in many cases for their families too. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes people are super unreasonable, but that's just how life is. People aren't always going to be super reasonable. And honestly, you can't really do this job without that understanding, or you drive yourself crazy. And honestly, sometimes, especially earlier on at the block, when we kind of gate crashed the crypto scene, we were a little bit more scrappy. Maybe we fired from the hip a little bit too much. And so in those early days, sometimes I maybe got a little bit too much in the sort of back and forth. But over the past year and a half, you kind of realize that that's the territory you're in, and you kind of just have to take it in strides.
Frank, did you go to Full Sail University?
No, why?
Oh, because I thought if you did, you may be the greatest alumni of Full Sail University, but you didn't go there. So
I didn't. I would say I'm one of one of the luminaries of Fordham University.
Fordham,
which is Fordham in the Bronx is where I got my degree in theology and international political economy.
Incredible. So tell me a little bit more about that theology.
Yeah.
Why did you stop? Most people who study theology go on to be professors and potentially get a PhD.
Well, I thought I was going to be a priest, but they didn't trust me around the wine. To quote the late great Dean Martin. No, it kind of happened by accident. I was interested in the intersection of faith and money and economics, and sort of how people leverage or leverage their faith in a sense, or to inform the way they think about the world, specifically about money and economic policy. And there are a few different strands of theology that is rooted in economic thinking. There's liberation theology in Latin America and the Black church, which is, kind of cemented in this idea of the figure of Jesus kind of being this downtrodden guy and who aligns himself with the poor. So it's kind of very socialistic in its thinking. And then there's also other more conservative strands of, something that's known as the prosperity gospel, which is almost the antithesis of liberation theology, which is Jesus and God are more so figures to be sort of adorned and looked at as these mighty figures, and that to sort of aspire or to be like them requires, being successful, achieving a lot, doing well for your community. And so I just found all those different themes fairly interesting. And so I kind of just kept on with it. But that's basically it. I never had any career desire to get into that. And honestly, if it wasn't for my time at FUV, I would have never gone, which is a radio station at Fordham, I would have never gotten any journalistic experience. I never took a course in journalism ever at all. it just sort of all kind of came together.
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of what you guys do at the Block. I followed you from the beginning. And I really appreciate the statements or this, this kind of perspective, or it's deeper than a perspective because you spend a lot of time studying this, but faith and money, it seems like that's really being put to the test right now and being examined more deeply by a much larger audience. And I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying seeing people think about, like, what is money? What is it backed by? It's just an incredible moment right now. And then we have this Bitcoin thing that's very tiny, but it's big to me. It feels kind of big. I think it's big to you as well.
Well, it's incredibly fascinating. At this point, I think it's a trite thing to say, but there is a certain religiosity that underpins the cryptocurrency world, right? When you think of the different factions and underpinning views of the world that inform the way many of these project leads and developers operate, there is a degree of religious sort of, fervor, right? You think of the old block wars of 2017 and the divide and schisms between Bitcoin Cash, which then you saw lead to Bitcoin SV, et cetera, et cetera. There are certainly parallels to be made to various religious infighting and schisms of history. And it has been the juxtaposition of my educational background with the way that this crypto community operates has been helpful and revealing. But yeah, I mean, your point about the way we think about money changing is something we often think about at the Block, and that's what makes this market so interesting. Is it teases out things about history, politics, economics, and one of my pitches for journalists and researchers looking to maybe come on board is it's really a starting point. You start in crypto, but that can help build the foundation for a career in any vertical, or a career in journalism in any vertical. If you want to cover regulations, crypto is a new breeding ground of new ideas and thinking about ways that various agencies can govern a new asset class. If you want to cover venture capital or hedge funds, same deal. I mean, we had a Cambrian explosion of crypto investors in 2017. Now we're starting to see some of them unravel. What an incredible space to cover and watch on the investment side, and the list goes on. So it's incredibly interesting, and I'm sure you have a similar perspective investing in the space, right? It is just greenfield, nascent, and makes you think about things you probably didn't really think about much before.
Yeah, I'll tell you because I would think it would be in conflict. Your pursuit of theology, your interest in theology, your interest in economics. One of the people who made a huge impression on me during my college years was this man, Elton Hendricks. He was a doctorate in religion. I think he graduated from Duke Divinity School. He's also a physicist, and he worked on helmet technology for the U.S. military. And I only got close to Elton when I was maybe a sophomore in college and had a problem in physics. I think I was taking calculus-based physics, and I wasn't really into physics at that time. I just had to take this class, pre-med stuff. I ended up needing to get this problem solved, and I was a bunch of jocks in the dorm. No one's going to help me with this physics problem, right? So I end up knocking on Elton's door. That's not a song, I don't think, right?
You're thinking of knocking on heaven's door,
right? But
knock.
Right, but he was a divinity guy. So anyway,
sure.
So I knocked on Elton's door, and Elton helped me with this physics problem, and we became great friends. And I fell in love with physics at that time, and I was really fascinated by him. That he was a Methodist minister and a physics professor and doctorate. And I was always like, man, this is in conflict. Like, how do you believe in God and how do you believe in science, especially physics?
Sure.
You know, I feel kind of the same way about money and religion. It's like, I don't know. It always feels weird when like the Catholic priest rolls up in a Lamborghini.
Well,
You don't see that very often, Frank.
It's funny. So, Fordham obviously is a Jesuit university, and Jesuits are sort of known for their je ne sais quoi and flash with cash type of demeanor. There's an old joke. Novena is basically a long Catholic prayer. And so that's just education that informs the joke. So a gentleman goes up to a Dominican priest and says, "Father, could you pray a novena for me so I can get a brand new Mercedes Benz?" And the Dominican says, "I'm sorry, my son, but what is a Mercedes Benz?" And the man explains to him what it is. And he says, "Sorry, I can't pray for that. It's something of worldly essence, et cetera, et cetera." So then he goes to a Franciscan priest, asks the same thing. "Father, could you pray a novena for me so I can get a brand new Mercedes Benz?" Asks him what that is. Same thing. "Sorry, my child, I can't. It's a worldly pleasure. It's not something that we should pray for." He goes to a Jesuit priest and he says, "Father, can you pray a novena for me so I can get a brand new Mercedes Benz?" And the Jesuit priest says, "What's a novena?" So, I mean, there are definitely questions that are warranted about the way certain religious types live and whether or not it's in line with the underpinning theology in Scripture. You have the same type of thing. John Oliver, the popular comedian, and he has his own HBO night show. He had a really good episode on a lot of these TV evangelists, televangelists, and their private jets and the amount of money they spend on their exorbitant mansions. And yeah, there's certainly an argument to be made that that's not in line with various theological principles, right?
I mean, Joel Osteen is a straight baller.
Yeah.
I mean, like
he puts Wall Street guys. Some of these televangelists put Wall Street guys to shame.
What is that? The Honda Jet? Yeah, it's crazy.
It's totally crazy.
So I'd like to do this. Part of what I do here at Going Parabolic is, I talk a little bit about Bitcoin, but I like to talk about current events. So just, and you're a thinker, you've written on everything. I wish I could read it all. It's behind a paywall for the most part, but I read what I can. I read what I can. And I'm going to ask you some stuff, and I was hoping you could help me understand these things, because I was listening to Denzel Washington. I don't know how old
Fordham alum.
Yeah. I don't know how old the interview was, but if you get a chance to pull this soundbite, you should listen to it. He was talking about journalistic integrity and about like scoops, and now like everyone just wants to be first with information. It doesn't even necessarily have to be accurate information. They just want to be first. And there's a tremendous responsibility I think journalists have always had. And the good ones, I think, maintain that integrity. It's like, I don't know, I think of it almost like a doctor. Like I have expectations of journalism.
Yeah,
should I not,
should,
though?
yeah.
I mean, I should, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's wild now. Everybody's a journalist. Like everybody has a hot take.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is this difference between analysis and sort of fact-based reporting. Analysis includes a mixture of facts and can leverage either outside opinion or the journalist's own opinion to sort of inform a take. And so those are two different sort of types of writing that I do both. So it's sort of new for me, new at the block. When I was at Business Insider, I didn't do that much analysis. I didn't write things outside of, Bitcoin is up 10%. That's not something you can really get wrong, right? There were scoops, so-and-so's leaving this company to join this company. Again, very, fact-based, hard to kind of get wrong. But when you get into the gray zone of saying something like, I'll give you an example. Robinhood recently lost its head of crypto. Didn't really lose him. We know where he is, but he left the firm. And so my understanding is basically they're scaling back on the crypto business in order to prioritize some of the issues they've seen within the brokerage business. So outages and questions about whether or not they're providing the proper guardrails for users to understand what they're getting into. So that's all sort of, I think most people agree those are all facts. But when you go to the level of analysis and say Robinhood is scaling back crypto, that's good for Coinbase for XYZ reason. That's where you get into analysis, and that's where you might have someone at Robinhood or maybe one of their investors say, well, this guy is biased. It's not so much that I'm biased. It's that I'm sort of taking a position based off of facts and my own sort of analysis of the space to come to a conclusion. And so I think that's what a lot of folks who maybe are a bit more traditional or want to see journalists strictly just write X happened might be uncomfortable.
That seems to rarely occur today. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Frank.
No, that's
I just
kind of my
feel
point.
like that type news isn't newsworthy almost. Like the facts are readily available. And maybe that's why people aren't consolidating them. And now there are reporters that are doing this. It just seems to me that the more provocative, the more salacious, the faster you can deliver this news. That's really what's promoted now. And then the structure of the news is terrible. Like these clickbait, like sometimes there is like an interesting picture or a headline that I actually want to get to.
Yeah.
But the way you structure it, I'd rather eat a shoe than try to get through the 10 pages, click next, pop-up ads. What is going on?
Yeah. Well, you have a few problems there. One is sort of trying to get as many eyeballs on the page as possible, right? So you sort of you rig it so that, or you sort of make it
engineer
as such,
it. Yeah.
You engineer it as such so that people are on the page for as long as possible. But you also have many journalists who are just writing for other journalists, right? And aren't being respectful of the reader's time and their busy schedule, right? We try to write with conservation of words, right? We try to not expend as many words as possible because the reader is busy, right? And so, we're not going to try to use language that's too flowery. We're going to be straight to the point and sort of say exactly what's happening, which is critical in this environment.
Do you have folks internally that are structuring the way you write to optimize it for search? Is that going on? Because I feel like I have like PTSD from my days of driving eyeballs to a company I used to run in healthcare. So we were trying to have priority ranking on organic search, and writing or being a subject matter expert in healthcare was really important. It was a strategy we used to prioritize the company. And we were being outspent $30 to $40 to every $1 we would spend. But we would hire ghostwriters to write on topics that were important. But do you guys structure the way you write to optimize for search? And
there are a lot of simple things you can do. Keywords, including a keyword as opposed to words that may not be as searched up top in the front of at the top of the article. Various SEO optimization tactics where in the URL you might adjust it as such that it's something that's more clickable or searchable. So, if I was maybe writing about a person leaving Goldman Sachs, probably would lead with Goldman Sachs in the URL versus the person's name because Goldman Sachs is what's searched more. If I was doing a roundup of hedge funds, you'd probably want to lead with the hedge fund that's the most searched in that URL. And then obviously things as simple as linking is incredibly important, and including tags on the article so that folks can sort of easily find it when searching keywords in your site. Very basic stuff, but all of it is incredibly important to getting to the top of Google. And you talk about being first. Being first was always important in news, but the way people digest news these days by going through various search engines, being first matters, and being first brings you to the top of that Google page. In addition to just sort of being the trusted source of news first, which is incredibly important to us. And that doesn't mean we forego accuracy. We get beat a lot. We get beat a lot because we spend time thinking about whether or not the headline we have is precise, and things as simple as, accidentally, or rather making sure that you're referring to something in the proper way, right? Is it a hedge fund or is it a investment firm? And, spending those additional seconds might cost you on being first, but it's vitally important to being accurate. And it's something we take very seriously, and something I take very seriously, frankly, and this might sound bombastic or egotistical, but I've written so many stories, to your point, that a lot of the time, I can sort of sit on something because I want to do the extra due diligence. And I mean, I've written enough scoops that at this point, if I don't get that one, I'm not going to be at my wit's end. I'm going to be fine, because there will be more. And that's sort of my mentality now, is that there will always be more stories to write. And so there's no point in rushing something just to get it out.
Yeah. Frank, do you see the structure of reporting under a mothership or a top co changing? Like I even think about the way I take news now, and it really is like newsletters from trusted resources. Like if there was like a Frank Shapiro newsletter, that would be something I would subscribe to, versus trying to curate through the block, where I believe you're the director of news there, correct?
Yeah.
So you are playing the role, and correct me if I'm wrong, of reviewing topics, and there may be other writers. Are you blessing those topics and saying, now go child, write, and then you bring it back, and then you sit there, you sit at a big desk, and you have like
all these papers
everywhere. And do you ever wear a hat with
I'm constantly chain smoking cigarettes with a vat of whiskey?
And then I don't know what that thing is. Is it a notepad that you keep in your top hat? Is it a notepad that?
Funny.
Right, but it's a small one I've seen. That
I have small ones too.
Yeah, tiny, because you have to scribble.
Yeah, because people are talking really fast, and you got to get it down.
Yes, and then you rip. Are you ripping pages constantly? Ripping.
Well, I'm actually. It's insane. Yeah. I mean, I have notes that are all over the place. It's like all these.
Papers, loose papers. Let's see some papers. Yes, sticky notes.
All this sort of stuff.
Sticky notes everywhere. Okay. Yeah.
So one of my key responsibilities is basically allocating the news pipeline in a sense, right? So even on a day like today, like I've probably had 4 different stories hit my inbox, pretty important news that will, cross the wire at various points throughout the week. And so I'll sort of drop that in the channel, and along with our managing editor and our other editor, we have 2 other editors, figure out who exactly would be the best person to write this story. And if it's something that might fall under my expertise, I'll help guide the sort of direction of that story and play a little bit on the editing side. But, thankfully, we've brought on some great editors in Michael McSweeney and Mike Orcutt, who have really helped me allow me to build out the podcast and to help out with hiring and sort of being the public face, unfortunately for you folks, of the company, which includes things like webinars, podcasts, and when we weren't gripped by this pandemic, conferences and the like.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. I mean, I'm fascinated by, like, if you ask kids in Europe, probably in the United States, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Being an influencer is high on that list. And I see folks like you who you're kind of out of discipline right now, and you're wildly successful, in my opinion. And
Thank
you
you.
seem to be enjoying yourself. And that's part of being wildly
Oh, it's
successful.
a lot of fun.
Right. So, like, wildly successful to me isn't like just being rich. Rich has a lot of definitions. Wildly successful, happiness, quality of life, being around people that you love and that love you, and being able to flee the state and pursue the road less traveled.
The road less traveled. That's right.
Yeah, during a pandemic. I mean, most people today don't have that. You know, you step back to Gen Xers, to boomers. They're locked in kind of career paths that just, it's a different world. I read a statistic recently where I wish I had the poll. I hate doing this because I'm about to use a statistic without a reference. You'll love this. 188% of millennials polled, I don't know the source, have a side hustle.
Sure.
And it's absolutely different than the way boomers think. They just don't do that. And is boomer the right word, or should I say baby boomer?
Boomer's fine.
Okay, I just don't want to offend.
I mean, there's kind of like a slight connotation that's negative, but they are boomers.
Right, but I feel like I'm taking a shot when I say boomer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's sort of it's got a negative connotation now that it's built over the past decade, maybe.
So you were kind of a Wall Street guy, right? I mean, you were working.
Oh, sure. I mean, I had a brief stint at NASDAQ.
That was the kind of trajectory, right? You were like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to ask 21-year-old me when I was wearing my very nice gray navy suits at Times Square at the NASDAQ market site, I mean, that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in financial services, and very buttoned up, very professional, and never in a million years would have anticipated that I'd be sort of bouncing around as this almost caricature of myself.
I love it.
Writing news.
No, I love it. It's actually everything that I promote here. This is about like entrepreneurship and taking risks and living a life of quality. I think
eudaimonia is the word I was thinking about when you were talking about what wealth is. The Greeks called it eudaimonia, this sort of fulfillment. And not to say that I'm totally fulfilled. There's a lot of things I want to check off my life list, so to speak.
Sure.
But yeah, in the meantime, I'm incredibly lucky that I have this level of freedom.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, so look, what's next for the block? Are you guys raising money now? It's kind of a really interesting business. I'm not sure if you guys also do like institutional research, but can you hard pitch me for a second in closing? And because I didn't get to 90% of what I wanted to talk to you about today, which by the way, I knew was going to happen anyway. Because I like
What were some of the lingering questions?
Oh, Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to talk about $3.9 billion fine.
Sure, yeah.
Goldman Sachs and gold.
Gold has been huge.
Gold, right? But
I've read about gold the past few days. People love it.
Do millennials buy gold? They love gold.
I don't know who's loving it, but I'm telling you, it's the article yesterday I wrote was like the top read piece on our site.
I'm telling you.
Same story.
Gold.
I have no idea.
Gold.
Maybe the Zoomers love gold now. But in any case, your question, the pitch on the research product, what is the block? I mean, this has been one of my big issues in sort of
so I'm not sure what the block is.
Going out there and evangelizing. Yeah, people aren't necessarily sure what we've got going on under the hood, right? Because it's paywalled. Now we have the premium news product, which is best probably thought of as an information-like product, right? Like it's the deep analysis that I'll do on things relating to trading or Wall Street meets crypto, etc. And then other like profiles of companies, profiles of individuals. That falls under the premium news product, which is a lower price tier than the institutional grade research product, which is a really full suite of products, right? It's the research you can read, the various reports on corporate earnings, or a deep dive on a project, or, we do a lot of charting and analysis around volumes and wash trading, et cetera.
You also invest?
Pardon me?
I mean, do you all internally take that research and actually invest as well? So are you
No,
kind of
we
like
don't. We don't.
fund?
It's not like sell side bank research that sort of outlines, here's our thesis for why, Stellar is going to go to $1,200, right?
Yep.
It's more so like to familiarize yourself with various aspects of the cryptocurrency landscape. And so our clients aren't necessarily using that research to then go put on a trade. They can in some instances, like they might leverage that. It's not financial advice, but it's being used by clients like UBS, Goldman Sachs is a client, Fidelity is a client, Visa, MasterCard, maybe not MasterCard, but Visa is. Facebook is a client. And so the purpose of them being clients is more so to sort of inform the way that they view the space and maybe build out their respective product roadmaps. And so that's who we're targeting with that research product. But it's also webinars, right? We partner with firms like KPMG on producing webinars that can help inform the space on things like MPC technology and various custody solutions, which brings their client base up to speed as well as their internal employees. And then another piece of that is advising. And this is what's truly fascinating about the block and the degree to which we take our division seriously. I mean, we have clients that our research team members will go fly out and speak to about whatever they're working on. And I have no visibility into that. I have no visibility into what they're charging them for those services or what they're sort of helping them on. And so there is this very strict iron curtain, if you will, between the news side of the business and research in many respects. But at the same time, the news team leverages the expertise of the research side to inform our reporting, and it gives it that extra layer of quality, right? So if I'm working on something related to DeFi, non-custodial exchanges, I'm going to kick that up to Teo to give it a scrub to make sure that I'm using the most precise language when talking about things like batching or various ways in which these protocols are incentivizing liquidity, et cetera.
Yep, I love it.
A long answer.
No, it's what I was
that's the whole kit caboodle.
Right, and so finally, though, are you all raising money actively? This is kind of a venture backed or?
Yeah, we're venture backed. So
Venture-backed,
we have a whole swath of investors that most of the time I can't even remember who they are.
Yep.
But your listeners will probably be familiar with Block Tower Capital is one of our investors.
Yep.
They're one of the larger, well-known ones that backed us, and there are about, I think, 20 or some odd others.
Pretty cool.
I can't really keep track, but I think we are still raising a bit of money. I think Fortune had the scoop earlier this year when Mike Dudas left the company on us raising, at the time, I think we had raised $2 million in additional funding to sort of scale the team out. And we've been doing that. Still looking to hire journalists, even in the midst of this unfortunate circumstance, and build out the sales team, et cetera.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. Well, look,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, like I definitely want to do this again. I'd love to have coffee with you in New York sometime once this this pandemic thing is over. And again, I think you're a super interesting guy. How can people follow you on social and read your stuff?
FinTech Frank at FinTech Frank on Twitter. I'm sorry about the incessant selfies, but it's people really enjoy them, so I keep posting them. But be ready for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. All right, listen, we'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Cheers.